Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Innovative Benefits webinar series. My name is Becky Reich. I'm the Director of Quality for the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project at Indiana Youth Institute. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We're extremely grateful for the chance to connect as a community of Indiana youth workers committed to meeting the needs of our youth every day here. For those of you who are not familiar with IYI, our mission is to improve the lives of all Indiana children by strengthening and connecting the people, organizations, and communities that are focused on kids and youth. So today's agenda includes introductions, some quick housekeeping to help with the session. Then we'll jump into today's topic. Presented by Purple Inc. We'll have time for Q&A, followed by connecting you to some additional no-cost resources provided by the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project that will additionally support your team and organizational well-being. And then we'll wrap up with a session evaluation. The Youth Worker Wellbeing Project is a collaborative statewide effort to improve the lives of Indiana's youth workers so they can more effectively work with youth. Project partners include Indiana After School Network, IARCA Institute for Excellence, Indiana Youth Services Association, Marion County Commission on Youth, and of course, Indiana Youth Institute. Before we begin, I would like to share a few quick pointers that will help you engage with today's webinar. For any technical issues, use the chat feature to send us a message and we'll assist you. You can also use the chat feature to engage with our presenter, with staff, and with others in attendance as well. We do encourage you to use the Q&A feature for questions. We'll get to as many as possible throughout and leave some time at the end. You can also upvote questions that you would like to see answered. At the end of today's presentation, in a follow-up email, you're going to get a link to complete an evaluation. Please take a few minutes to let us know your thoughts about today's presentation. If you don't receive that email, check your junk email. It might have gotten stuck there. Once you do complete that evaluation, you will then be redirected to your certificate of participation. And like many of IYI's webinars, today's will be posted on the website if you'd like to revisit it later. So just a quick note about this Innovative Benefits webinar series with our amazing partners from Purple Inc. This series is really designed for youth-serving organizational leaders and human resource professionals to be able to learn about the latest trends in employee benefits, to gain tools to boost employee retention, satisfaction, and of course, overall well-being. Our amazing presenter today is Josie Curtis, the founder and owner of Purple Inc. She has a passion for helping organizations and individuals discover their talents, do more of what they do best, and find joy in their work. She's bringing with her a unique combination of prior experience as a CPA, CFO, and VP of HR. And although all of those 30 years in HR, she's especially passionate about training and speaking to inspire others. This is evident through her creation of the Joy-Powered philosophy. I believe you'll hear a little bit more about that later. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Josie.
All right. Thank you so much, Becky, and welcome to everyone joining us. I want to start by saying, and I'll just warn you that I might repeat this several times throughout the presentation, that I'm not recommending that you have all of these different time off policies. So you might be a bit overwhelmed too as I go through and explain some of these. Of how many different options and choices there are. So don't think for a second that you need to have all of them. And we'll talk about that again at the end too, to think about your workforce and your population. You know, do you have a very young workforce? Do you have an older workforce? Are you trying to attract more different ages or mothers or working moms or men or whatever it might be, but to think about what might be an attraction and a benefit to your organization. So we always want organizations to think about their employees' well-being and align those with business goals. So it is important to have time off policies, but we'll explore some of the trends, examples, and actionable insights related to um, to the different type of leave. But first, let's start by even thinking, why do time off policies even matter? Well, if we do them right, we can do all of these things on the screen here. It can help us to improve retention and morale, to reduce burnout, to enhance inclusivity and belonging, to align with diverse workforce needs. And another one they don't even have on the screen is attraction. They can be attractive to employees, even to want to join your organization. But they're not just benefits. They are benefits, but they can be so much more than that if we use them appropriately, that they can help us. And again, we'll talk about a wide variety of different types of time off policies that other organizations are offering or have in their wheelhouse as a benefit. Let's start with some of the more traditional law policies that many of you might already have. Vacation leave, typically that accrues over time. You might offer more vacation leave to employees who've been with you for longer periods of time. Holidays, of course, many organizations start with federal holidays, although I was thinking tomorrow is actually Juneteenth. And I'm curious if you could type in the chat how many of you are off tomorrow, because that is a newer federal holiday and not all organizations are offering that. So far, everybody's off. So, oh, there's a few no's now. So some are, some aren't. So, which is typical, right? So even some of those that are considered federal holidays, that used to be the baseline for many organizations. And then organizations might have added to that. But in the past few years, we see organizations not even offering all of the federal holidays like Juneteenth, like Indigenous People Day, what used to be Columbus Day, some of the President's Days, and some of those as well too. Sick leave. Oh yes, Doreen, thank you for several people now are saying that they offer floating holidays for those who wish to take off Juneteenth or other days. And I'm a huge advocate for that. So thank you for mentioning that. We will talk about that more specifically today, but having those floating holidays allows different people to take off holidays that are more important to them or their families. Juneteenth can be one of those. I used to work for an organization that had a lot of Jewish people in the organization. I am not Jewish, but if you think about it, most organizations are off on Christmas and maybe even around Easter time, but yet Jewish holidays are not considered to be standard holidays. So it allows people who those holidays are important to take off on those days by offering floating holidays, and let them choose what days are most important for them too. Sick leave, of course, can cover personal illness, wellness visits, doctor appointments, but sometimes also are inclusive if your child or spouse or some other person that you're taking care of is ill as well, or you're taking them to a doctor's appointment. So that can be an option there. Is that sick leave only for your employees? health, or is it, does it include time off for wellness of other family members or dependents as well too? PTO banks, that sometimes you might just hear that called PTO, but that's where employers combine vacation and sick time, and then sometimes personal time, and sometimes uh, other types of leave can be included in that as well too. And that prevents you from people having to say I'm sick or I'm on vacation. They can just say I'm requesting a PTO day. By the way, too, a lot of these leaves are not necessarily um, just, granted you get, 10 vacation days and you can take them whenever you want. Many times, as a matter of fact, most times we would ask for approval so that people can get approval up front to take those off. One of the reasons why PTO bank became so much more popular is because sometimes people were using sick time to really be on vacation or to take a personal day. So they would wait till the last minute and then call in sick. Well, if someone knows they want to be off a week from Friday, instead of waiting till the last minute, if you have PTO, they can plan ahead for that, and which is easier for them, but also benefits the employers and the organizations as well to be able to better prepare for those. And then, of course, there's also a leave of absence and disability type uh, leaves as well, which have their own rules included in those. Could be short-term disability, long-term disability. A leave of absence could be Family Medical Leave Act, and those are legal and very structured time off policies that you would need to um, offer. FMLA has some specific regulations around that you need to have 50 employees, mostly in one location. There are some exceptions to that. We could do a whole webinar on Family Medical Leave Act, so that's why I'm intentionally not going into all of the details of those, because there's a lot of laws around that type of benefit specifically. So, but probably at least generally, many of you are familiar with some of those types of leaves that we just mentioned. Now, from here going forward is where we'll start to talk about what we call beyond the basic time off that you might choose to offer or you might not. That first one is the sabbatical. That really started in academia. So many universities in particular have offered sabbaticals for a long time, but we're seeing that much more frequently offered to organizations as a way to give people time off, maybe for rest, for personal time, for to gain a new perspective. If you think about in the university settings where they offered sabbaticals to professors, it was because sometimes those professors were going back to school or getting new certifications, or maybe even spending a semester with a corporate organization. So they're getting back into having real-time experience on issues they might be teaching in the classroom. But Arts for Learning Indiana, as an example, is a nonprofit here in Indiana who offers sabbaticals. You could offer them as unpaid time off, or it could be for or it could be for paid time off as well, too. Parental leave, I briefly mentioned Family Medical Leave Act, but you could also offer time off for when a parent has a new baby, an adoption. That even gets us into grandparent leave. Now that's a new benefit organizations are offering, maybe just a day or two or a week off when a grandparent has a new baby. I'm a grandparent of two, so I love that one in particular. But that, again, is an example of something that might not be a need for your workforce, or it's something that you offer that maybe only applies to one person, right? Doesn't mean you can't offer it, but it might not be an attraction retention tool if not very many people can take advantage of it. The bereavement leave, that can be for very specific family members. Some organizations might just offer that for immediate family, but it also could expand to be close relationships. It could be the loss of a baby or a miscarriage, or even the loss of a pet. So you can make bereavement leave as expansive or not. It used to be we'd see a lot of organizations that might offer, say, 2 days off for an immediate family member, and I might offer a week off, or I'm sorry, the other way, maybe 2 days off for, say, a grandparent, but 5 days off for an immediate family member. Now I see more organizations just offering a set amount of time for that. Of course, no amount of time is enough, right? If you have an immediate family member, um, that you've lost. So it's hard to say, well, you get 2 days for this person and you get 5 days for that person. Bereavement is another example of something that could be included in a PTO, and then therefore those who need it can use it. But it also can be a benefit that's offered that maybe a lot of people don't need to take, but boy, those people who do really appreciate the opportunity to have that additional time off. Jury duty is one that is legally required in many jurisdictions, and organizations can choose to decide if they pay people for that or not. They do get paid if they serve on a jury, although typically it's significantly less than their regular pay. So you can choose how you want to do that. Voting time is another one that you can offer leave for. Of course, they like to have the polls open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. so that people could vote before or after work, but giving them the opportunity to do that during the day or to come in early or leave can be appreciated as well too. So remember, I'll tell you some of my favorites, but I'm not always going to tell you if I'm recommending them or not, because I think that's something you need to think about in your own organization. Yeah, so there's a question in the chat. What if someone is summoned to be a witness or has to provide testimony at a court hearing? Would that just be jury duty? Not specifically, really, not by the terms of the law where you would actually be serving on a jury. But again, you could choose to expand that and offer that additional time off to them as well. And you could include it in your jury policy. Sometimes that's, again, it might not happen for very many of your people, but if someone is impacted by that, it could turn into a possible considerable amount of time. there. So just be a bit cautious of that as well. Now, here's some of those leaves that, are a bit more innovative and very much emerging policies. So I'll tell you what they are, and you can decide what works for you. But a growing number of employers are now offering paid time off for employees experiencing painful or disruptive menstrual symptoms. By the same token, the next one, menopause leave, which is somewhat similar to that, but focused on supporting employees managing menopausal symptoms such as hot flashes, fatigue, or sleep issues. If any of you have experienced either one of those, you'll know that those could be very nice benefits of you dealing with those. But again, they can be exclusive. Is a lot of your workforce female? And so by offering those, are you excluding people who are not experiencing those symptoms or feel like maybe the females are, getting more time off than others? Many of these policies were created to actually be more inclusive, right? There's been a lot of conversation recently, especially in the last, say, 12 to 18 months, about that menopause, as an example, has been one of those that is, people have it previously didn't want to talk about or didn't want to bring up. And yet they're real symptoms and real things that impact our employees in the workforce. So it's a real problem that shouldn't be shoved under the rug. And that's why it's a nice inclusive benefit. But again, if it goes too far, are you excluding other people who may not be experiencing those? Now, I know you could say the same thing about bereavement leave, right? Maybe someone is impacted by that 3 times in a year, and someone is not impacted by that for 3 years. So you just have to really think through what's important to you people and what might make the most sense. Gender affirmation leave. Some companies are providing up to 8 weeks of paid leave to support non-binary or transgender employees who may need time off for medical procedures, legal changes, or even just mental health support. Paternity leave, which is also a fun one, I think, and a newer trend where employees adopting a pet might receive paid time off to help their new pet adjust to their home. I know I personally just lost a pet in April, and so I mentioned earlier about bereavement leave could include your pets as well. There's a nonprofit organization in Virginia that's an animal welfare organization, and they offer pet bereavement leave for their employees. And I think that in particular is a great example of understanding the values of their organization, right? That they are an animal welfare organization. And so I think it makes sense for them to offer bereavement leave or paternity leave for new pets that align with the business goals and possibly the values of the organization as well too. Compassionate leave, that might just be time off to handle deeply personal or sensitive situations that are not covered under bereavement leave or family leave. And maybe that's an unexpected life challenge. Maybe that's a divorce, or other types of personal leave type things as well. So. If you have questions on these, don't hesitate to ask questions as we go along, or we'll also get them at the end. Flexible and floating leave options. Now, I briefly touched on these before, and I will give you my opinion on these that I think can be very valuable. A time off, those floating holidays. Several of you mentioned that you had those, and I think you can have floating holidays, or you could just have floating leave that encompasses many of the things I just talked about. So maybe you don't want to offer just menopausal leave, but you want to offer a flexible leave of up to X number of days that people can take advantage of, whatever their situation is. Maybe for someone it's pet bereavement or pet adoption, and someone else it's menopausal or menstrual leave as well. So you don't need to create a policy for all of those. So personally, at Purple Ink in our organization, we have one bank of PTO, and that includes vacation, sick, bereavement, and holidays. Some PTO policies include holidays. I would say likely the most organizations have holidays separately, but so 4th of July is coming up soon, and I didn't look at this earlier. 4th of July might be on a Saturday. Oh no, it's on a Friday. So if some of our team members want to work on the 4th of July, they can choose to do so. Of course, many of our clients have the day off. And I have a few people who like to work when they are not interrupted very often. So they choose to work on some holidays where they're not getting very many emails or don't typically have any meetings, and then use that time to extend their vacation or to extend other holidays where they might want to take a couple of days off. Paid volunteer leave is a one that's been around for a while, but I am seeing that more, especially as nonprofits. That could be one that might specifically align with your goals, to have them work at other nonprofits or volunteer with some of your partners or other organizations that you work with, or to just be on the other side of the volunteer policy where you might have a lot of volunteers in your organization. It gets you the opportunity to be on the other side. And I've seen organizations with this who maybe only offer 4 hours, right? This doesn't have to be, well, none of these have to be something that where you're giving even a whole day or 5 days, right? It can be it can be a number of hours or one day cumulative for the year. Well-being days, I know we have certainly been seeing these more. Even my kids are all grown now, but when my youngest two were in high school, they would talk about their friends taking a mental health day. So some people call them mental health, but just as a time to give them to rest, recharge, or focus on mental health. Um, some companies might schedule these company-wide. I know an employer I used to work for offers a mental health day for the entire organization now on the same day. Volunteer time could also be like that as well. Maybe your entire organization is taking off to volunteer for another organization at that time too. So they could be organized times, or they could just be optional for your employees to pick and choose when they do that. And I see Becky says they love well-being days. It at um, at their organization as well too. Birthday leave is another one. I know some organizations who's offered the birthday leave for 50 years. Like that one has been around for a while, kind of a simple one. Again, I'm sort of a fan of my birthday's on April 5th, and maybe I don't necessarily need to be off on April 5th, but I've got plans the next day. Or so do you offer that they can only take off on their birthday, or could that maybe be a floating holiday for people to take? And then winter closures, some organizations might be closed specifically between Christmas and New Year's. It's a very common practice in manufacturing facilities, but maybe even for some of your organizations, maybe specifically if you are very busy in the summertime, for example, you have a lot of fundraisers or large events at different times of the year, and maybe it's not real critical time for your organization at the end of December to take off. Summer Fridays, I'm seeing more of organizations offer that as well too. Sometimes that's a half a day. Maybe it's just starting at noon on Fridays. Maybe it's the whole day. Maybe it's every other Friday. So we see some organizations that have 9-hour work days, and then they can take off every other Friday. So that can be a benefit that can be working, in there as well too. So, yeah. So we'll just look at the next one, shared leave and peer support. So shared leave is one of the most empathetic and community approaches to time off. And that's where this policy would allow employees to donate their unused leave, maybe sick time, vacation, or personal time to coworkers in need. And that can specifically happen too, maybe if your policy on some of these leaves is that you can roll over time or that you can't roll over time. So it's use it or lose it. So maybe someone else could benefit from that time off that you're not taking anyway. I will throw in there that personally, I'm not a fan in most situations of offering leave that rolls over. So whether that is vacation or sick time, I think it's important for employees to take time off, to get away from work. And I think if you allow that to roll over, it gives employees an excuse to not take time off. Or, we always have those people who say, but I don't have time to take off, or I'm so busy, I can't take time off, so I have to roll it over. Well, generally, I would say no matter who you are and what your role is, we all need time off from work. And personally, I don't allow rollover for that. Now, in some organizations, that's a huge benefit, and they offer that. But I like the idea of also being able to share leave or donate days to other people. I will tell you this one is there are some ramifications, let's say someone who makes $12 an hour is donating time off to someone who makes $60 an hour. That can make a different financial impact, right? So you do have to be very careful with these policies, and I wouldn't just willy-nilly say, oh, everyone can donate as much time as they want to someone else. I would get some, either with your attorney or a benefits consultant, get some help on structuring a policy. But certainly, I'm sure many of you have seen employees going through a crisis, caring for a critically ill family member, dealing with something themselves, and to assist them in not having to take unpaid time off. It can be a very fabulous benefit that you offer. So I'm not discouraging it. I'm just saying be a bit careful. And certainly you don't want to require people. This should be voluntary participation with lots of oversight as to how it's working there as well too. So just the legal ramifications, how much time can you maybe only donate up to 8 hours? Are the donations public? Are they anonymous? Does it count toward the accrual, benefit eligibility? Just lots of different things that could create some issues in your organization. So a couple of organizations that are offering some creative time off or toolkits, Standard Charter Bank. I know that's outside of your nonprofit and social services work, but just to give some examples, any of these could be used in your space as well too. But Standard Charter Bank has conversations guides, counseling support, e-learning modules, flexible working policies. By the way, I should really point that out about flexibility. There's been so much talk about employees being able to work remotely or hybrid. And that's not our policy, or that's not our topic for today, so I won't go too much into that. But most surveys since 2020 will tell you that more important than um, them working remote or not is having flexibility. So that can be a huge benefit to offer to people is the flexibility. And maybe that even means it could mean you can work 4 10-hour days or 5 9-hour days and, have a Friday off. But it could also just mean, can you come in at 7 and work till 3, or could you work 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 or whatever your policy might be. So I think flexibility is we're seeing now for all generations is a very important benefit that you can offer. The MBA is offering menopause benefits as well as inclusive fertility and family building benefits. That's fertility is another benefit that we're seeing more and more organizations offer. And then Canva offers up to 8 weeks of paid gender affirmation leave. We talked about that briefly, but in the event of a stillbirth or a neonatal death, Canva offers full paid parental leave to support during this difficult time. So again, you can offer some of these benefits and make them very structured as to how much time you want to include there. So just as we wrap up and move into the questions, some things to think about. Thinking about your own policies, how inclusive or even how exclusive are your current policies, and what can you do to make them more inclusive? What might be missing for your employees? And again, don't necessarily think of it as going back to give people more time off. Maybe you just give them more flexibility on how they can take their time off. You know, I mentioned that some of my team members can work on the 4th of July. Well, in your organization, it might not make any sense at all for your receptionist to work on the 4th of July if her sole purpose is to greet people coming in and to direct phone calls to other people, right? So what what might help your particular employees? And then do they reflect the values of the organization? I think is really important. As I mentioned, that example about the animal welfare organization, specifically recognizing some paid leave that are, you know, important for the care of animals. So what might those things be for you? I also have one other leave I wanted to mention that actually just got passed in the state of Indiana. Very recently. It hasn't even taken effect yet. It will go into law as of July 1st. But this leave and it's for all employers of any kind of any size, no matter how many employees you have or don't have, and can apply to any of your employees. But the reason for the leave is to state that an employee can take leave related to their biological or adopted child to attend a conference regarding school attendance, to attend a meeting regarding an individualized education program, or for a student with a disability. And there's some very structured rules around that. The employee can only take a leave for no more than one conference or one IEP meeting per calendar year. Might not have been familiar with that one, and your employees probably are if they're in those situations. So they might be asking you. Um, about those as well. So you can drop some questions in the Q&A, as Becky reminded us in the chat, but maybe some things to think about. And some of you have mentioned a few of these as we've gone along. What policies have you implemented or seen in action? Maybe it's policies that are working or policies that are not working so much. And then what questions might you have about designing a new policy that work for time off? Policies beyond the traditional. So we do have a few questions in the chat. I'll answer the easy one first on Emily. I did say the new law about the school conferences and IEP goes into effect on July 1. Sorry about that. She said my audio kicked out. And then the other question says, I'm wondering if you've heard of organizations being targeted in the anti-DEI wave if they offer specifically named types of leave, such as gender affirming, rather than a more expansive PTO or floating leave that gives employees options for leave that is indeed radically inclusive, but not divided into certain days or for certain types of leave. I can't say I've heard of anyone being targeted for that, although I think it's coming, right? I mean, in our society, right, a lot of issues are being attacked. And, but I have seen organizations who have included those into other types of leave, as you mentioned. without giving it a name like gender affirming leave. So remember too that some of those could fall under FMLA as well too. So, but then are they paid? Are they unpaid? Can be choices you make. So, I'm sort of the camp, not for certain, not that I want to attack DEI or gender affirming or menopausal or menstrual, but of having more general, flexible options that people then can use for what makes more sense of them. And then that, even for menopausal leave, you might offer that to their employees. And although they shouldn't be, they may be embarrassed to ask for that time off. So just calling it a different type of leave might welcome employees or encourage them to take it. And also reminder that almost all of these, except for the specific legal ones, can be approved. Well, even those have to be approved, but and documented, but you can create approval policies around those. So it's not that you need to say, as I mentioned, Canva offers 8 weeks off. It's not that you have to have gender affirming leave for 8 weeks. You might have it for 1 day or 2 days, or just have different types of leave where upon approval, they get 5 days of unpaid or paid leave for those. So, someone else says, have we heard of employers letting employees use sick time for vet visits? I can't say I have heard that specifically, but I, again, tend to be very flexible. And so if I had a specific sick time policy versus just a PTO allotment, I would encourage that to um, allow them to use sick days for vet visits. So you certainly could offer that. Someone else says, do you find having a single PTO bank discourages employees from using PTO for things like sick leave, holidays, and bereavement? And how do you weigh this against the pain and flexibility? Great question. And I have had that question before, right? It gets to the end of the year, and then people say, I can't believe we don't have a day off for Christmas or New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve or Thanksgiving. My intent is to give my team employees the greatest flexibility. However, they have to be cognizant of that. We actually had someone last year who had used up all of their PTO leave prior to Thanksgiving, and then they didn't have time off. Now, in our case, we are available to work flexible hours. So they could, for example, work 4 days the week of Thanksgiving and account for 40 hours and not work on Thursday. So that's a different policy that we offer, but that does give them more flexibility. So no, I did not make them work on Thanksgiving or at Christmas, but I help them to be creative. And I remind people too, when it comes to the end of the year, about, saving that time if they want time off over the holidays. So, here's another great question. Oh, wait, I think I missed a couple here. Yeah. Okay. What are your thoughts on payouts for unused PTO days as opposed to rollover? Personally, I don't like it, or I wouldn't encourage you to have very many days to do that. Maybe you allow them to be paid out for a couple of days or for up to 5 days. But again, my intention is I want people to take time off. And so if you're allowing them to get paid out for it, some people may choose not to take time off at all so that they can get the extra earnings. And I understand that is more important for some people, but I would certainly limit it. And just to also add, that is, somewhat common in organizations as well, too. You can also decide what you want to include in PTO. I'm going to go back for a minute to Lane's question. Our PTO includes everything, but you can have PTO for sick and vacation. It doesn't have to include holidays and bereavement or personal days or, things like that as well. So, yes. So Tina's question, if you have a PTO bank, can you limit the payout if someone leaves? I will tell you, generally, when someone leaves an organization, you're required to pay out earned but unused vacation. And generally, organizations don't pay out for unused sick leave. So, and I'm so thankful you brought this up because this is really important. If someone, I actually have someone leaving my organization on June 30th. So they had 200 hours of time off. So as of June 30th, they will have only earned 100. Now that could be a significantly larger number that I'm paying them out for unused PTO time because I'm including all of those other days in there. Where if you had a separate vacation policy and a separate sick time policy, you likely only would have to pay them out for the vacation time. So it can be an additional cost. And if you have high turnover, I would strongly recommend you think about maybe not putting much in a PTO bank. So, Becky, do I have time to? Oh, okay. You said one more minute. Thank you for the right, especially then. Right.
I
Oh,
think you maybe just have one unanswered currently. If you want to respond to that one in the chat, and I'll get us wrapped up.
Yes. Okay. That's a great question too. Could use an example of policy for an employee who uses all their PTO time for the year and then gets sick at the end of the year and needs more time. What can be done other than not paying the person? This is causing a challenge with coworkers. And that can happen with any type of leave that you offer, right? Let's say you don't have PTO, you just have vacation and sick, and someone uses that time before the end of the year. So generally, the general rule would be it is unpaid time off for them. That's where sometimes, if your PTO starts again on January 1 and you allow them to use some time off for the next year, I have done that before. It's not our policy, but I've tried to be flexible with people. So I'd say legally and in your employee manual, there wouldn't be another option for that. But maybe you can be creative and working through that with people. So thanks for the great questions.
Some really great questions. Well, Jody, thank you so much for this presentation. So much good information. Before we close today, I do want to make sure, and you will get all of these slides, so you'll have this wrap up information here as well. I do want to make sure you are connected to the other components of the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project that benefit the well-being and supportive services for your employees. So we have organization level supports and individual supports. Organization supports include telemedicine and virtual mental health services at no cost, grants for trauma-informed workplaces that could include things like dollars for well-being programs or policy creation. And then youth worker supports include our peer support groups. If your organization is not already enrolled in our telemed and virtual mental health services through First Stop Health, this is a great no-cost program offered to qualified youth-serving organizations for all full and part-time employees and their family members. Keywords there, and part-time and their family members. I'm including some additional details you can review about eligibility later when you receive the PowerPoint. We also offer peer support groups to all youth workers facilitated by licensed behavioral health specialists from Hope Haven Psychological Resources. 6 different days. Each session provides a virtual confidential space where youth workers can connect and share experiences in topic-based, practice-oriented, or even supervisor-specific or open discussion groups. There's no organizational enrollment required here. Any youth worker can drop in as needed. And again, including additional details there for you to review later. We have well-being in action. I mentioned practice groups. Here's some additional details for you to review later on the monthly topics that are coming your way here soon. We also offer one-time private peer support group sessions for organizations that can be scheduled to cover tailored topics for your team's specific needs. So again, information about our facilitators of those group and organizational sessions here. And of course, we hope that you enjoyed today's session and want to come see us again and our friends at Purple Ink. So our next Innovative Benefits webinar, Helping Employees Use Health Benefits Wisely, is on August 14th. Additional topics and months are listed below as well. And all Youth Worker Wellbeing Project upcoming events can be found youthworkerwellbeing.org/events. Additionally, want to make sure you are connected with all the IYI offers. And one of the best ways to do that is to stay connected with IYI's outreach managers, who offer a variety of opportunities to connect with professionals and youth-serving organizations right in your own communities. So make sure you are tapped in and know your regional outreach manager that will open those doors for you. As we conclude, I sincerely thank you for being with us today. Your feedback truly does drive our work. So please take a few minutes, let us know what you thought. Again, upon completion, you will be redirected to your certificate of completion. We appreciate your impact and choice to learn aside the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project today. Later today, you will get that email that includes a copy of the slide deck and presentation, as well as this link to the evaluation. Again, check that spam folder in case it got caught. And on behalf of our team here at IYI and the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project, we want to say thank you again for showing up today and every day for Indiana youth. Remember, you are not alone. Please reach out to the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project anytime. While you are here for Indiana youth, we are here for you. So thank you again for joining us and have a great day.